Okay, welcome everyone to the Finding Yourself Masterclass. My name is Clarissa Findlay. I'm a life designer and I'm the host of this event. And I'm so excited to have one of my best friends and favorite people in the world, Kate Dorsey, on with us today. And I will let her introduce herself.
Well, hey everyone, I'm so excited to be here. And it's just awesome to get to connect with Clarissa on the professional level. Um, I have been a therapist and a life coach for over 12 years, and I focus a lot on mindset. So it's really transforming what's happening in the brain so that you can actually live the best life that you really want. So thank you for inviting me. It's so exciting to be here.
Yes, awesome. I'm so excited for our conversation. So the conversation we're having is on finding yourself and finding true belonging. And, Brene Brown's quote of true belonging doesn't require you to change who you are, but it requires you to be who you are. And so I'm so excited to hear what you have to share with your work that you do on, our brain and our inner critic. Since I know you and I know what you do, um, how we use that in the process of finding ourselves and finding true belonging within ourselves. Because, like Renee said, it's not about seeking it outside of ourselves; it's about finding it within. So, what would you
Yeah.
have to?
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I'm so eager to jump right in. So really, like, a lot of what's happening is that we tell ourselves stories over the years and we don't realize that we have this voice inside of our head that I like to call the inner critic, which really gets in the way of the things that we want. It's the voice that pops up with, like, who are you to do this? You're not capable. Don't take that risk. And it's really like, it's the thing that interferes with us really living like our truth and who we really want to be. So when it comes to like finding ourselves, it's really like returning home to who you were. So when we were children, we had it right. We were really free. We were fun loving. I mean, like, the worst thing in the world was bedtime or bath time. And so when you say finding yourself, it reminds me of returning to our true essence of who we are. And one of the things that interferes with us really getting back to who we are is the inner critic, because it's this voice that consistently says, you can't do this, you're not capable of that. And like, when we look at a small child, we can realize they're not, like, a 5-year-old isn't generally saying I'm not capable. They're like, they've got their shoes on the wrong foot and they're so proud of themselves. And so we really, like, we learn this over the years and we get socialized into this as we go through schooling. And ultimately, returning to yourself, in my belief system, is very much unhooking from the inner critic, unhooking from all the negative thoughts that you tell yourself, from the stories that you tell yourself, and returning to your true natural essence of who you really are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. I love that because it really is a process of, even though I've coined this as finding yourself, it's really about going in and finding yourself in here, because and like uncovering all of the things that the world has said that cover up our little child that was so happy and proud of exactly who we are. That's still there. It's still inside of us. And we really know. So ask, what would you have to say for people that are on the path of seeking their purpose, seeking who they are, and feeling stuck or feeling blocked? How do we start cracking that shell?
So one of my favorite things to do with clients is to actually start to turn your attention to other things in your life that are working. One of the reasons I like to do that is because it's really more about getting in alignment with joy. So when we're really struggling and when we're really down, I think that it's incredibly hard to look at, like, oh, well, how do I figure out my purpose? Because you're just in this space of, like, I don't feel that good, and like, this is really hard and this is challenging. So I like to have us start to shift our attention into experiencing things that are more joyful. And one of the reasons I like to do that is because we can be reminded of the things that we used to enjoy as a child, the things that lit us up inside. And when we connect with the things that lit us up inside, it is easier to discover our purposes. So I'll share with you, like, this one's kind of sidetracked, but like, I used to love to make art as a little kid. Like, I can't even begin to tell you how many art projects my mother had. Like, it was ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm actually trained as an art therapist. So that definitely connected to my purpose. And then over the years, I transitioned to other things. but fundamentally there's this aspect of like pure joy that is very much experienced and associated with when I was a child. Does that make like sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So how did you utilize that creative process and joy that you find out of that on your own journey of discovering your path?
So whenever I open up to having fun, ideas and inspiration help me. So when we're in this position of this is a struggle, this is difficult, this is challenging, we're not exactly open or receptive. So when we allow ourselves to have some fun, when we allow ourselves to loosen up, or even to just like get out a piece of paper and like brainstorm, when we start to loosen up, we end up opening up to ideas, opening up to inspiration, seeing inspiration. Like how many times have you not noticed something because you were so caught up in like I got to figure it out, I got to know what I got to do. This is such a problem. This is such a hassle, and you just like you miss the things that are right in front of you. Because people are always giving you information. Like, what are the things that people are telling you you're really good at? Because they see you, they see like the real you, and it's like being open to even hearing that's really powerful. So it's about creating openness in your life, and like I said, I like to do that through loosening up and having more fun. And fun can be like going for a walk after dinner. It doesn't have to be this like I have to go to the roller coaster amusement park and ride 8 rides before I've had fun, like all automated. So it's really important to just like loosen up, be open to the ideas, and start to listen to what other people are sharing with you. Or like if you're brave enough, and like I for sure encourage people to do this, message a couple close friends. Like ask them, hey, what are like the top 3 things that like come to mind when you think of me? Or like, what are the things that you notice about my personality? Obviously, with my personality, I'm frequently told I'm like a really good listener. So that comes up, or like I'm really good at like giving people ideas for how to do things. And like that makes sense given that I'm a therapist and a coach. But people can really easily implement that strategy of getting out of their head, going to have some fun. Don't overcomplicate the fun, just have some fun. And then even being willing to reach out to others to ask, like, what do you think I'm good at?
Yeah. I love that. I love that suggestion of reaching out to people, because sometimes we can't see ourselves in quite the same light as other people see us, or we see all of our negative things and other people see our strengths, or they see things that we just don't even see. So that's really powerful.
Yeah, that's so true, because really like we're so caught up in our stories, the stories that the inner critic has been feeding us for years about like what we're capable of, what we can do, like who are you to be an artist? Your art isn't good enough. Or who are you to be a dancer? You're not, I mean, you might not be tall enough, but you don't have the body type. Or nobody, who are you to teach this? You're just not capable of that. And so it's like all these things. And it's like we're so tied into this story, into this view of who we are, that we don't realize like all of our gifts, all of the things that make us uniquely us, and like how there's not another single person on this planet. And like, this is really powerful. There's not another single person on this planet that is like you. You are you're the most uniquely you person. There's no other person with all the combination of traits and characteristics that is like you. So what I'm really saying is you're unique. And in your uniqueness, you can really begin to like, if you can celebrate that, if you can open up to that, then you have like a lot of possibilities begin to present themselves to you.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's so much of what the process of finding belonging within yourself is all about, is finding those things that are unique about you and that you love about you. And even even the things that are unique and maybe a little on the darker side, and just accepting all of it. Accepting
Yeah.
all of it.
Yeah, I love that you just said the darker side, because I agree with you. So I love to frame it as our strengths and our weaknesses are like they're on the opposite sides of the same spectrum. So if you're really stubborn, and I'll own that I can be stubborn, and on the other side, right? Like, and on the other side, I'm super persistent. Like I will get things done. So we have to like own that, like there's nothing, like when you're so like when you're beating yourself up over the things that you think are negative, you're missing out on the flip side, that there's
Yeah.
strength within that, and you're so tunneled in on why it's not working for you and how you're not good at this or how it's so hard, that you miss like that there's beauty in the opposite. So determination is a gift, stubbornness is the downside, right?
Hmm.
um
But you couldn't have the other side without it. So it's just like making the choice of how you want to show up in each situation.
yes, yes, I mean that's such a good point, because it's like, yeah, you couldn't have one end without the other end. It's just kind of that, like they go hand in hand. And like people, like one of the things I really want people to understand is that we spend so much time rejecting the aspects of ourselves that we view as not good, instead of really seeing that like there is, like this is actually really really cool, because you can't have one without the other. And like when we talk about like really finding yourself, to me when you're like talking about finding yourself, it's a lot about coming back into like loving yourself fully and unconditionally. And if you're pushing away from the parts of yourself that are all of you, like true self-love is being able to open up and like say, hey, you know what, I love my stubbornness, like I really love my stubbornness, I love that I get bent out of shape, I
Hmm.
love that I am not detail oriented, you know? So like, it's like, how do we bring love to all of that? Because when you do, you find yourself at home within yourself.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So, what are some baby steps for people that are, I mean, it's our natural way of being as humans to reject that. And it really is a process of training our mind, as you know, how to accept that. So, what are kind of the first baby steps of retraining the mind?
So I would say the very first step is to actually get aware of what your thoughts are in general.
Hmm.
So it's really hard to change what we're not aware of. So I encourage people to really hear, like, how do I talk to myself? Another step to that would be to start to hear the voice of the inner critic more clearly. So your inner critic is the judgment, is the negative voice, it's the critical voice. And when you can really start to hone in on that, now we can start to look at, well, how does my inner critic serve me? And I know that sounds kind of crazy, but like ultimately your inner critic is there to protect you, but it just gets like super out of hand. And then from that, another step that I like to use, so ultimately I really like about 5 steps here, is to look at the other evidence, like what other possible truths might there be than what the inner critic has been presenting to myself. And then from there, I really like to open up into like, how do I want to think? So, because like a lot of people will say use affirmations, and like I just really want to hone in on like, I only like affirmations that feel true to you. I would like
Hmm.
to say we have built-in BS detectors,
Hmm.
and that if I say something to myself that isn't true, like if I were to say, you're a beautiful ballerina, I'm sorry, I want to like crack up because I'm 5'2". I will like I'm not a ballerina. And if you could see me, I'm not the most graceful person. Totally cool. Like I literally was doing something really funny yesterday and like tumbled and fell over. And I was like, okay, well, whatever. But my point in sharing that is that like you get to choose the thoughts that you want to tell yourself.
Hmm.
You don't have to be dominated by the inner critic. And you really want to pull back and look at, use your internal guidance system to really see like, does this thought feel true to me? Because if it doesn't feel true to you, then it's a thought you don't need to be telling yourself. So
Yeah.
ultimately, it's really 5 steps. Gain awareness of all the thoughts that you have. Really hear the inner critic. Then move into how is that really serving me, so that we can kind of like stop. We need to get it to be more quiet. Look at the evidence, like what other evidence is there, what other possibilities exist, because
Hmm.
so many of us just buy into what our inner critic says. And then what new thoughts do we want to think? And that's where you really use your built-in BS detector, because you know when you tell yourself something that just doesn't feel true, right?
Yeah.
Like everybody knows that, because like that's one of the things when you're reading an affirmation, when you're like, I am a millionaire, and then you're like, that
Not
not
really, not yet.
not yet. Like if you want to say like I'm a money magnet and that feels good to you, great, go for it. Or I'm really great at or like a lot of times with folks, like when we're moving up in terms of how we're changing our languaging, it won't necessarily be, I know my purpose. It might be, I am learning or I am figuring out my purpose.
Hmm. Yeah. So being really aware and in tune with yourself and what feels right. Because it's not about, like you said, like tricking your brain. It's just not going to work. Our brains are wired to keep us alive, keep us safe, keep us secure. And if we put something out that is so far from our actual truth, then it's not going to work. So, and maybe even a process of using affirmations as a gradual process of, moving forward as like, okay, this is the next step. This is where I'm at. This is the next step I want to be. And then the next step and the next step and moving into it.
Yeah, I love that because that's really the best way to use affirmations. It's just moving you in the direction of what you want, but recognizing until you're firmly standing in it as a truth, it's not going to be effective. So stand in one that feels like a truth and then reach for a thought that feels ever so slightly better. Stand in that and then do that process again and again. And you'll be amazed at what opens up for you, what becomes possible for you, what changes.
I love that. I love that. Beautiful. So, so let's talk about our story, like our past. And you'll have some great insight on this since you are trained as a therapist. I was just talking. I've had a few conversations today about what's the difference between a therapist and a coach. The way that I don't know, how you describe it. The way that I view it is the therapist helps with the backstory, and the coach helps with moving forward. Not that therapists can't help with that, but it's kind of, it's kind of the way I see the division. So, in this process of accepting ourselves, finding our true self-worth, loving every part of ourselves, how do we take our story and those, those back things about us that we've experienced and accept them to then move forward?
So when I totally agree with your stance on the differences, and I would also say that coaches have a higher degree of accountability, that they're really more present, whereas your therapist may not be that reachable between sessions. It's kind of like the way it is. So ultimately therapists do go back into the past, because your past, whether or not you realize it, has been dictating your future for your entire life. Everything that you don't have, that isn't working for you, if you're struggling to figure out your purpose, if you're not in the relationship that you want, if you dislike your body, if you don't have enough money, it's literally all rooted in your past. And it's in the things that you say to yourself, and you just don't realize that you're saying them. So some of the things that I often do with clients is to drop them back into the past. Where is that coming from? When is what memory pops up? Because ultimately it's always a memory. And there's a lot of emotion tied to that memory, which always indicates that we're on the right path. So it's really looking at, there's a memory that's holding you, and it's the story is, what did you make that memory mean? So it's this, I'm holding on to this and I've made up a meaning about it. And the reason I would say you made up a meaning about it is because usually those memories are rooted from when you were a little kid. And little kids have a very different viewpoint than adults. The entire world revolves around a child. So what I mean by that is their whole worldview is 100% on them. So and how do we know this graphically in terms of artistic development, because little kids will draw a picture and rotate the picture around them. So the whole room looks like it's drawn on the outside, because a little kid's viewpoint is so egotistical. And so why I'm sharing that is because when you look at how you've come to make that mean something, and it's become a story that tells you something over and over, you have to realize that you saw that through a child's eyes, and that a child's eyes and interpretation are always rooted in themselves. So ultimately you made a decision a long, long time ago, and you've been walking through your life with that one. And it comes back to a childhood memory. I'll share a childhood memory to just help people kind of see how this can work. So I can remember sitting in the back seat of a friend's mom's car, and I was being told I couldn't go play in the sprinklers because I was too bossy. And what I made that mean was that it's not okay for me to be me. And then I literally carried that through for a really long time until I did a bunch of personal work to like unhook from that. But does that make like, is that land, like, is this making
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because like you know exactly what you said. We take those when we're little kids, we take those, we take it so literally. It creates a belief system, and then we continue to create event after event after event because that's what we believe about ourselves and that's what we see. Yeah.
Yeah, and like you like mentioning the brain structure. So a child's brain is not fully developed. Your brain isn't fully developed until you're like 25 years old.
Mhm.
So the way you view the world is very different. And like literal is such a perfect word for that because it's this or that. When like little kids get upset when moms are like, you can't do that or you're never gonna do that because they're like thinking that it's like the end all be all, that like mom just made that mean this and I'm never going to be allowed to have macaroni and cheese again for the rest of my life. Like that's literally how a child views things. That is part of why they get so upset about stuff. So, and
Mhm.
they're very in the moment too. So we can like, if we would observe children, we can learn a lot from them and about how we need to go back and like, what is that memory that's popping up when you're having trouble figuring out your purpose or finding yourself? What memory surfaces? Because there's a lesson in that memory.
Mhm. Yeah, I love that. Beautiful. Beautiful. Well, I love talking to you. We could talk all day on so many topics. As we wrap up, is there anything you'd like to share in conclusion?
Um, there's power in your choice. You have the capacity to change how you think, to get the results that you want in your life, to live on purpose, and to really come home to yourself. And it really comes down to making a huge decision and a commitment that your life is worth so much and that no matter what happens, you're going after what you want. So, again, the power of your choice. And yes, I love talking to you. So, I know we have a fun road trip tomorrow. So, that's going to be
Mhm.
awesome.
Yeah, I love it. Yes, I love it. Thank you so much, Kate. What's next for you, and how can our viewers find you?
So you guys can find me on www.thrivecoachinginc.com. I'm in the middle of hosting a 5-day challenge. I will have a webinar coming out pretty soon. You can also find me on Facebook under Thrive Coaching INC again, and on Insta at Thrive_coaching_INC. Most complicated Insta name possible. Um,
We'll
so yeah,
post it below.
great. I'm always up to something. I am sure I'll be most likely hosting another summit in probably December. And I'm coming up with another fun challenge because I just love those.
Awesome.
So check me out on, I'd say, thrivecoachinginc.com or on Facebook. Those are the easiest ways to find me.
Awesome. Great. And she does wonderful, fun Wednesday Facebook Lives, Wellness Wednesdays. Are you keeping those going?
Yeah, I completely
Yeah.
forgot about those though. What's even funnier is like I'm literally gonna jump on and go do one of those. So it's
Awesome. Oh yeah, Wednesday.
they're such a part of my routine now that I'm like, oh yeah, no, I totally do this every Wednesday.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah. So check her out there. Thank you, Kate. It's been a joy conversation. And thank you, everyone, for watching. And we will talk soon. Bye for now.
Bye.